A lot of marketers, when I ask them, invite them to come on this stage and ask them to be involved in a debate, I get a flat no, if I'm honest about it. So they've been very brave coming up here today. Well, I'd just like to say that everyone here is playing a role. What they say today may not necessarily reflect the positions of their organisation. So I'd ask you not to quote them as such, but please respect that as we go through. They're playing a role. Everyone knows that the answer to this motion today is more nuanced than it's not completely black and white. So please keep that in mind. So I will say, when we talked a lot, obviously, about sustainability today, and our definition is we're working with the United Nations definition, which is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So we're not just talking about planet, we're also talking about people. So if you haven't seen the Project Everyone's Sustainable Development Goals, brought to you by Reckitt on the first floor, please check it out. But that's our definition as well. So now, I'm going to ask each of you to pull out your mobile devices, because I'm going to ask you to vote. This is quite important. Your role today is very important. We are going to be doing a pre and a post of our motion. So our motion today is that marketers should focus on company, not consumer behavior change. So that's to say that the emphasis for our industry, for marketers in our industry, should be to get their own houses in order before they're trying to change the attitudes and behaviors of others, the consumers that they're trying to connect with. So if you could please cast your vote, whether you agree or disagree. And then we're going to come back to that motion. So our team red will be disagreeing with the motion, and the team green will be agreeing with the motion. So if we have enough votes, perhaps the team at the back could post the responses. Interesting. So 73% of you are disagreeing with the motion. So I'll take note of that. With that, what I would like to do now is ask our team disagree, who agree with the 73% of you who voted. And I think first up is Charlie from CISL. So, Charlie.
Thank you, Rob. So it's the position that marketing holds in the economic system that makes it such a very big and powerful part of the sustainability solution. Marketing sits at the intersection of business and society. It bridges production and consumption. And it's here, at the heart of the economic system, that it acts as the engine room of the economy. If we want to transform the economy, we have to transform marketing and align it with sustainable outcomes to deliver positive contributions to society. There's a common misconception that marketing is just about selling better products, but there's something much bigger and much deeper going on here. Marketing facilitates conversations of scale. It creates what society perceives to be valuable. It informs, it connects, it creates desire, and it creates meaning. So as the meaning makers of society and the architects of desire, you marketers don't just influence what we buy and how we behave. You influence why we buy the things that we do and why we behave the way that we do. And it's this why that holds so much potential for sustainability. What's behind that why is marketing's brain print, which is defined as the sociological, psychological, and cultural impacts and influence of marketing, media, and creative work. It's the narratives, the stories, the creative work that marketers put into the marketplace that shape our beliefs and our identities, our values, our behaviors, our lifestyles. It creates these very deep social and cultural norms and narratives across society. If we want to rewire the economy, we have to rewire marketing's brain print. We have to rewire our social norms, we have to rewire our cultural behaviors, and we need to align our collective psychology with the sustainable future. Now, to do that, we have to reclaim the role of marketing, media, and creative professionals. And marketers need to consider the creative impacts of every decision that they make at their desks and how that's going to influence the end consumer, the people who see it. To give you a practical example of just how powerful we marketers are, in 1947, Frances Geraghty was a US-based copywriter who wrote the infamous tagline, "A diamond is forever." Now, she did that for De Beers. De Beers wanted a campaign to address the fact that diamond sales had depreciated in the Great Depression. As we well know, this tagline was a huge success. And in 2013, the New York Times reported that De Beers had used this tagline every single year in every single engagement ad since 1948. This is just one example of the influence on consumer and cultural psychology that marketers have. Many have credited Frances and her team for being responsible for creating the modern concept of an engagement ring and the social norm of diamond proposals, which were not commonplace before 1948. It's this psychology and this psychological impact that has an impact on the planet. We could question how this tagline alone has influenced diamond mining over the last 75 years, and how so many other taglines that we put into the marketplace have influenced so many other social and environmental consequences. The sustainability crisis needs all of us, marketers, to use our creativity and our positions to work for the generations of today and tomorrow, recognizing that your work has the ability to transcend the time that it enters the marketplace, and the future generations and younger generations are watching what we do today. This means putting the well-being of society front of mind from the outset of every creative decision, every strategy, every marketing activity that we take, make, and do, considering the full product life cycle and the end behavior that it influences, and the power of pop culture and social and cultural norms to drive the level of transformation and systems change that is needed. The latest scientific evidence supports the fact that we need to focus on people's behaviours. In 2022, the IPCC released a report that included an entire chapter on demand-side mitigation. What that did is put the individual needs and behaviours at the centre of this analysis for the very first time. And in that report, they detail the technology, the infrastructure, and the social cultural transitions that will be needed to influence sustainable choices, behaviours, and lifestyles, and support their adoption and uptake. Now, the IPCC suggests that that work could decrease emissions by up to 70% in some sectors. Some countries are acting faster than others, and Sweden was the first to introduce consumption-based emissions in its climate target. Now, when that gets adopted more broadly, and this is embedded into further policy, the part of the business ecosystem that will be called to act will be the marketing industry. As we step up, we must consider the indirect impacts of our work. To argue that marketing should focus on company behaviour can suggest limiting its sustainability thinking to the direct impacts of an organisation or a brand. It's impossible to consider the consumer behaviour we want to achieve without considering the company behaviour that will also influence that. But narrowing the lens on company behaviour can make it easy to exclude the further thinking that is needed on consumer and societal impact, those indirect impacts of our work. So to create the future that we need, we urgently need marketers to use their skills, their competencies, and their creativity to influence changes in narratives, in norms, in behaviours, and in lifestyles, to drive the societal and the systems change needed by focusing on people and on cultural and societal influence first. Fabrice.
Thank you,
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you for respecting the time as well. So,
I know.
And then we have Fabrice with 7 minutes. Fabrice from Reckitt to continue with the team disagree argument. Thank you.
When you hear Charlie, you realize how much the needle is shifting, is moving for marketeers. We exist to serve people's needs, to meet their expectations, where people expect brands to become more sustainable. They want two things, mostly. They want more sustainable products, and they want brands that contribute positively to society. So that has concrete implications on what we do every day. It reframes innovation. the quality of a product must be combined with a sustainable design. Less plastic, less emissions, greener chemistry. It also reframes communication. The programs of positive impact that a brand develops can become the core of its communication. Innovation, communication. You could say that sustainability is coming at the heart of the growth playbook, of the brand agenda. At least that's how we see it at Reckitt. We are a British company. We sell roughly 30 million products every day across consumer health and hygiene categories. You probably use one of our brands, Finish, Nurofen, Dettol, Durex, to quote just a few. We are very clear on what we exist to do as a company. We want to help create a cleaner and healthier world. And all of our brands try and help contribute to that mission, each in its own authentic way. And to do that has really been a journey which actually started where Charlie works, at Cambridge. We went there a few years ago, a small team of leaders, commercial leaders, marketeers, R&D leaders. We wanted to learn more about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG. And then, we had this new idea. We asked every brand team to choose for their brand one SDG. One brand, one SDG. The way they did it was through the history of the brand, and very often through its science, present or future. That connection, that powerful connection between one brand and one SDG actually liberated the creativity of the teams. It was a powerful engine of new ideas, of innovation. And I'll tell you one story. The story of that brand, Finish. The team of Finish said, for us, it will be SDG 6, water and sanitation. Finish is a dishwashing cleaning brand. What does it have to do with saving water? Well, 2 billion people today live in water-stressed areas. With global warming continuing, that number will only go up. And cleaning the dishes is a water-consuming process. Who has a dishwasher? Well, every time you use it, for one load, it requires 10 liters of water. If you do the same thing by hand, it will require 100 liters. It's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? The machine looks so big and the tap looks so small. But in the machine, it's always the same water that gets used, cleaned, filtered, reused over and over. And what most people do is a bit of both. Rinse off a few dishes in the sink first and then place them in the dishwasher. Well, every time you do that, it's 60 liters. 60 liters. So when they unveiled these facts, our teams decided to end pre-rinse globally. And the first thing they did was to improve further the product. They upgraded the technology. They moved to something performing even better, but also which has lower chemistry. We started then to tell these facts, the facts I've just given you, to people. We started here in Turkey in 2019, and from there we went to tens of markets. Innovation, communication. We measure our impact as well. Here in Turkey, we collect water bills, so we know that when people skip the rinse, they save 20% water consumption. And that story of impact and better business, we tell everywhere with our amazing partners on this page. It's better business because we save water and we also sell more tablets. When you skip the rinse, you will use a little bit more tablets. You will use more the dishwasher, and the product is better. It comes at a premium. Impact and performance, they can come together. Now, it's just one brand, some of you will tell me. It's one story. You cannot always do that with a brand. Find a connection to SDGs. Maybe, Maybe for some brands it's more difficult than others, but in my experience, if you look deep within the 17 goals, you will find one meaningful area of impact, one that connects back to the business of your brand. Ali very kindly alluded to Nurofen and SDG 3 and what we do in that space this morning. The teams have unveiled that in the UK, as an example, women are in pain more often and more severely than men. Yet, over 1 in 2 women feel they've had their pain dismissed or ignored because of their gender. And the teams want to make women's pain more visible. It's called See My Pain, See for Yourself.
I didn't want to get up, I didn't want to eat, I didn't want to... Sorry.
This pain was like you were being tortured.
Over 50 years of living with pain.
To just put up and, carry on, which at the time I couldn't.
My friends sort of got on with their lives and thought Natasha will be okay.
I was told it was just wear and tear. That was it, wear and tear.
Why don't you go to bed then if you're in pain?
Well, maybe it's just stress.
You start to believe when they say that there's nothing medically wrong.
Yeah, nothing wrong with you. It's like this energy of dismissal, like...
I think if I'd have been told your pain's real, it'd have saved my mental health.
I don't think for 1 minute, if a man was sitting in my position, they would say, you're just being emotional, Mr. Smith.
That was like an ongoing thing. You're the female that doesn't really know what you're talking about, kind of.
No one was listening. They just looked at me and assumed I was an overly dramatic woman.
Nurofen is committed to help close the gender pain gap with new research and more training for doctors and pharmacists. We hear you, we support you, we see your pain.
Why should we wait to do that? Why should we not talk about it now? Our brands have big voices. Let's hear these voices in the service of meaningful change. Where brands have expertise, where they have credibility. All these changes, every day, everywhere, they will add up. Our brands can lift us all. That's why you should really vote for Team Red.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fabrice. And next up, Team Green, please. I'll let you make your case, 7 minutes each, and then you'll both have a chance to respond to each other. So,
perfect.
Rupen.
I'll go first and leave Miss Turkey last as a team to actually do the work for us, because I was a bit disappointed that only 73% agreed we should start with the consumer. Because it's a difficult debate, right? We know the ideal answer is marketers should focus on both the company and the consumer, right? So as we were thinking about it, okay, and like everybody else, I want to get into consumer mode. I mean, you've met Mia and May, my 9 and 6-year-old girls, and I want to give them the best there is in life. Consumer mode. But the question we want to debate is, which one do you do first as a marketer? Do you start with the company before you go to consumer, or do you start with the consumer hoping the company will follow? And both are possible options. But here is a stat that we must explain to our children. There is a concept called the Earth Overshoot Day. It is the day in the year where we have used up all the resources the Earth can generate in that particular year. When I was born in 1971, it used to be 25th December. Oh, let's take 7 days from our future generation. Now, it is July. As we stand today, we require 1.75 Earths to live. And we know where this is caused. Milton Friedman created a value equation which was take, make, consume, and throw. And the bosses are financial capital, and the result is money, EBITDA. The assumption in this equation is that the earth has infinite capacity that we can just take, abuse. And it has infinite ability to absorb whatever we make and throw. And that kind of equation ignores natural capital, it ignores human capital, and leaves behind a degenerated planet and an unequal society. You know, so when you face numbers like, oh, we're only going to reach sustainable development goals by 2073, or it's going to be 130. I love advertising, it makes me cry. But unless companies who know the answers change the products they make, change the ingredients they put into it, change the packaging they use, and then do the advertising for consumers, we are all going to leave behind a legacy that we are going to be ashamed of. Because sustainable growth is ensuring the needs of the current generation whilst not compromising the needs of the future generation. The consumerist, capitalist world that we spend $855 billion promoting leaves the consumer confused. Should I buy your jeans, or should I be sustainable and not buy your jeans? So let me take the example of water. Companies today make 500 billion plastic bottles a year. Yeah, they spend thousands of liters to make one t-shirt, or a pair of jeans, or a bar of chocolate. For the haves and the have-nots, as consumers, it's different. The haves want to consume. So we drink millions of liters of coffee. And for the have-nots, there is no drinking water because the companies haven't begun the change and yet are advocating for consumer. I mean, the phones we change contribute to 70% of the toxic waste in our world today. In the last 10 years, the amount of clothes we buy has become double. Because they've been advertising to the consumer, and I want to buy, and I want to feel good, and I want to buy more. The usage we have of the same clothing in the last 10 years has reduced to half. So therefore, I present to you to reconsider the vote you just gave. For the 20-odd% that agreed with us, stay with us. If we have to achieve sustainable growth, companies will need to change, products will need to change, innovations will need to change, packaging will need to change, before we rush over as marketeers to communicate and change consumer. Because if we don't, we'll end up greenwashing them. We will have to redefine our value creation models. We will have to look at humanized, regenerative growth models and reclaim our powers as value creators. So the change needs to begin with the company, not the consumer. And that is my urge to each and every one of you. Yeah, thank you for listening. And now the presentation will move to Turkish.
This could be tough to moderate. Ozlem, please.
Well, Turkish or not, I must say I'm a bit heartbroken with the outcome. Because what I'm going to defend today is my also personal commitment. During the many months of COVID recovery, I decided to dedicate everything I know about change management and marketing to crack the code on marketing sustainable transformation. And I'm going to share with you my learnings during the past periods and make the case why for a transformative change, we need to start from within the companies, not with the consumers. That's what I want to talk about. But first, let's start with consumers. What's going on? What we see here is intention-action gap is huge. And what is also striking here is people are aware and willing to live a sustainable lifestyle. So we don't need to worry about that. That's done in the pocket. What we need to worry about as companies, we need to do more to help consumers make those sustainable choices for them to be able to live in the way they desire. And if you look at Zeynep, who lives in Istanbul, and the barriers she has when she decides to buy a pair of jeans, well, first of all, she doesn't know because companies do not provide her with enough information to make the right choice. Even if she's able to crack that one, well, it's not affordable, especially given the inflation has been over 80% in a year in Turkey in the last 2 years. Day-to-day priorities get in the way, and availability of the product is also a big issue. And according to Kantar data, on average, over 50% of people experience the same problems when they try to make a sustainable choice. So we've got a bigger job to do. But also thanks to brands' predominant effort fueling consumerism, what's funny is Zeynep already has 10 pairs of jeans because, you know, she bought cheaper jeans, better quality jeans, cooler jeans, buy now, pay later, and many more good deals. Well, thanks for that. 90 out of $100 budget spent today by companies, I think we can all agree, is spent on motivating more people to buy more often. And this needs to change. People are confused and they need help. That is what they are shouting for, the ones who want to live sustainably, that are in the pocket already. They say they look up to brands and companies to make sustainable consumption easy, frictionless, affordable, and what more, all the barriers that we have recognized. And the opportunity actually is huge as well if we drive the change from within companies and in a transformative way. The business opportunity overall is going to be 12 trillion a year by 2030 if we manage to unlock those business models that are sustainable and inclusive. But if only we manage to do that, huh? And the FMCG opportunity a year for 2022 is calculated for over $1 trillion by Kantar's panel data. So we also know, we are aware, right? CEOs actually say, according to the study, sustainability is a critical driver to future-proof our business. Yeah. And according to Sustainable Marketing 2030 study, 94% of marketers say we are willing to drive that transformative change. Yet here we are, with our incremental efforts, with 90% of our energy spent on getting more people to buy more often, whenever, wherever, and just throw it away. And profit and shareholder being actually the definition of our success. So unless we close that intention-action gap within companies actually, change is going to be only incremental, and we will keep on offering only partial solutions to Zeynep's problems, not a holistic solution. And change will also happen, but very slowly. And one thing we know is we don't really have the time. So how do we break that cycle? Well, one thing is for sure, that transformative change will happen only if companies change from within, because the systemic change required is big, and it requires companies to collaborate with governments, with NGOs, consumers like we've never done before. And it requires a whole new set of skills and capabilities to be built urgently. And internally, what we see is we need to define a new way, basically, that considers planet and people alongside financial impact. According to Sustainable Marketing 2030 report, which hopefully you will read also after this event, it is relatively easier, actually, to define a clear brand contribution and a strategy. However, it is a real challenge when you ask people, it is a real challenge to consistently consider people and planet impact alongside financial impact when it comes to decision making. So in order to be able to drive that, we need to change the way we structure our P&Ls. the way we calculate our investment ROIs, the way we define our KPIs and measure our KPIs, and most importantly, reward our people starting from the C-level. So we need to, these criteria are among the lowest scoring criteria in our study. And mind you, this is around the 50%, even for the companies who claim that they are advanced in the sustainable transformation journey. That is quite a striking figure. In fact, serving for the well-being of others alongside financial impact is nothing new to us. Hershey's, Unilever's, we've seen that before, and in the picture, Unilever's Port Sunlight iconic village, actually. Those were from the days when the business of business was beyond business. So we need to go back in time and remind ourselves those more selfless examples to move forward. So time to choose. Are we going to continue to choose the convenient way, which we know will destroy the very future of our children? Or are we going to courageously build those companies which enables us actually enact our good intent? I invite you to close your eyes for a bit and imagine the latter scenario. You all have in the audience superpowers to make a change. Imagine when you're at work, with every decision you take, with every initiative you make, you use those superpowers in the service of good. At the end of the day, the business is successful and you have not sacrificed and compromised on future generations' well-being. You close your laptop, you go home to your partner, to your children, niece, cousin, friends. You tell them about your workday. How does it feel? Happier? Hopeful? Lighter? So, today I ask you to vote and make a choice. What shall we use our superpowers for when we are at work? That is what we are discussing. Bugün evimdeyim, o yüzden çok rahat hissediyorum ve önce şirketler değişmeli için büyük bir evet istiyorum. I would like to see a big yes for company first. Thank you. Please to make a change. Otherwise, I'm heartbroken.
I'm loving the left brain, right brain approach to that, but was the last bit like a party political broadcast or something? Because I'm not quite sure what you said in it. But I'm going to accept that you took some of Rupen's time, but thank you very much. That was fantastic. Now, I would say to our lovely audience here today, please do feel free to post questions on the slido.com, and the team at the front will put the questions up here, and we may come to those. But first up, I would like to ask Team Red to have an opportunity to respond to Team Green. What's your response to the arguments that you've heard there? Whichever of you wants to go first.
Well, I think what they said is very true. It's very factual.
Thank you. We'll be closing the debate now.
I'm not finished. That's just the start. There's a lot of facts that you've brought up, and they're all accurate. And I think you've illustrated that one shouldn't choose. One shouldn't wait. It's not about waiting for the company to be perfect, to get started with your brands. It's about finding how one complements the work of the other. And they work differently. A company can work on a factory. A brand team cannot work on a factory, at least not as easily. But if you think about all the brands that are represented in this room, if all of them create a small change, a daily change, one that makes marketing a little bit circular, a little bit better, the collective impact of this room will be there to help all these companies. So thank you for all the facts, because I think they prove our point.
Lovely. Thank you. Charlie?
I can respond.
I think I'm just going to add and go back to the last point that I made, which is that it's impossible to consider consumer behaviour without considering the company behaviour that will achieve it. And completely concur. Absolutely agree with so many of the important points that Rupen and Ozlem have made. But when we're thinking about how we might change a product, how we might change the packaging, how we might address the value action gap, all of that has to come in co-creation and consultation with the consumer and with the people so that their needs and their behaviours are really put first. So I'll just come back to that sort of last point, that it's about considering the full product life cycle and that use, the purchasing, the disposal, for the full end-to-end, and really putting consumer consultation at the heart of what we do.
Thank you, Charlie. So I will have some questions, but I'd like to offer Team Green the opportunity to respond to the excellent...
Yeah, I'll go first, and Rupen, please complete. To be honest, when we talk about company, consumer, the way you talk about it is not what we are indeed in misalignment. But I think where our emphasis is, we want radical change, not incremental. And the other important data point is consumer is already aware and willing, so we don't need to do any more good job around it. Therefore, to be able to help consumers from this point onwards, what we are saying is first, we need to reprogram our ways in terms of how we think and manage our business and make decisions.
Lovely. Thank you. So first I want to start with we're all friends, right? Yes. Immediately after this, Christina has a bar set up by Diageo, and we're all going to have a drink together. But when I listen to them, they're saying, oh, we changed our product first, company, and then started advertising to consumer. That's what I heard, right? What I heard was we did linking to sustainable development goals, a company change before we went to consumer. So the question as an audience is, what message? See, WFA has amazing power. So whatever we choose, we're going to put a number, and we're going to give a message out to the world. And that will be one of two messages. We continue as we are. We are banking on consumers to go first, and that will force companies to go second. Okay? And therefore we are voting Team Red, my friends. Or the message we are going to give out to the world as WFA, on the 27th of April, at whatever time it is right now, we collectively chose companies need to change first, consumers are ready, and together that is incremental, transformational change, not just wishy-washy 2 ads, oh, mama cried, I cried, life moves on with plastic bottles. So that's the message we need to give to everybody.
My first answer is that drinks are on you tonight.
Drinks are on Christina.
Well, it's as always anyway.
WFA's Global Marketeer of the Year. Drinks are on Christina for everyone.
Well, you make an interesting point. Can we respond, please?
Yes.
You made a super interesting point, which is that people know. This isn't about creating more awareness, or at least not always. Sometimes people don't know. I showed the Nurofen example. Did you all know that there is a gap between genders around pain and its management? I didn't. And the team who works on it every day, and some of them have been working on it for years, they kind of knew, they had insights, verbatims, but now we got the data. And that's what we are good at as a community. Get data which doesn't really exist because we ask the right question. Once you have the information that you didn't have, you have almost a responsibility to act. That's how I see it. So sometimes awareness isn't there, but even if it's there, everybody knows that water is getting scarce. That's not the magic of the Finnish program. It tells you what you can do every day. I mean, everybody wants drastic change, radical change. Sometimes radical changes come by adding 1 billion different gestures across billions of people every day. And that's what brands can do. And that's why we shouldn't choose. Companies should do what they have to do, what they can do, and brands can find spaces for meaningful impact now, every day.
But a lot of the brand owners here probably work for organizations that don't have great sustainability track records. Should they really be starting with the communications piece? Does that not seem a little bit of cart before the horse?
I think what's powerful is to start by looking at your data, your sustainability footprint, whether it's your water footprint, your carbon emissions footprint, your plastic footprint. Just looking at this information, and it will exist in your company, starts the journey, because you know. And when they know, the marketeers usually trigger creativity and start finding solutions. So it starts with the data, and data exists by brand, and in my experience, then working on the product can be powerful. You change a bit your product, or you change fundamentally your product, and that also entitles you to take consumers on the journey and to ask them to do something different. But every brand will have its own journey and its own starting point. That's why collectively we need to find all the use cases and scale them. And I think the WFA has a strategic role to play there, and it plays it very actively. The more use cases we find of brands which started there and went there, the wiser we will become collectively, and the more impact we will create.
And the more you praise the WFA, the more points you get from me. So that's very good. That's sorry, Rupen. So question here. We know, as an industry, it's often talked about, IPA, loads of different sources, creative effectiveness is in decline, right? And a lot of people are saying, actually accusing us of greenwashing in terms of the messaging that we're putting out. Fine, get that argument. Does that mean we should be we can't follow up on our own organizational mandate in terms of the role that we're meant to do within our organizations? How can we be expected to take over and change the whole company's direction?
Yeah, and that's a question we all need to collectively answer, right? Do we want to get better at selling more jeans, knowing they take 10,000 liters to make, and that's where we're looking for creativity? Or do we need creativity in using less water, in having them last longer, and then communicating them? So when we talk, we have got so excited about the bubble we've created for ourselves. You know, we're the only industry that goes to the south of France, has our own people judging our own work and patting our own back. I like it, I go there. Yeah?
I was about to say, I swear I saw you there last year.
The moment when you vote is, are we looking for more of the same? Let's get a bit better, let's sharpen the tools we are working with, or is the world ready and needs new creativity? That of changing products, that of changing packaging, that of communicating to consumer. The consumer is ready, 90%. She's disappointed that she only manages 13% because we are not giving her sustainable living.
Thank you. And then there's a question here from the audience, which I think builds on Rupen's point there, which I put to Team Red. So if you don't start with your company first, how does this not lead to greenwashing? Any thoughts on that? Consumers understand. People get it. My kids get it, you know. So, any thoughts?
I think that you need to consult the consumer. I think you need to consult the consumer. I think that doesn't necessarily lead to greenwashing. I think that navigating the causes and complexities of greenwashing is about walking the talk in terms of transparency. It's about building trust in your brand. Trust is the glue that binds a society. If you're putting the consumer first, you wouldn't be greenwashing. You would be bringing them on a journey with you. You'd be transparent about where your company is at, and you would be bringing them on the journey with you. I think that if we navigate greenwashing in the right way, you know, putting it that way round, it doesn't lead to that. But it's about knowing how we navigate that problem.
Yeah, and to build on that, of course, companies need to have ambitious sustainability targets. There is this initiative called the Science-Based Targets Initiative. It aggregates 1,000 companies in the world. Reckitt is part of them. It leads you within a framework to set your targets for greenhouse gas emission reduction, water efficiency, and many more. So we're not suggesting that a company should not do that. It should definitely do that. However, when you look at where your emissions are for a consumer goods company, you will find out that most of them are at the point of usage with consumers. Who can influence that point? Not the enterprise name, the brands. So it's an and. Science-based targets for the enterprise and concrete, meaningful behavior change for the brands together.
Thank you. Now, quick show of hands here. Who's heard of, I appreciate we're in Istanbul, beautiful city. Who's heard of Sir David Attenborough? I appreciate he's a British guy. Okay, fantastic. We were lucky enough to have Sir David Attenborough pass on a message to our members at one of our previous conferences. And he said one of his famous sayings of late is that saving our planet is now a communications challenge. Rupen and Ozlem, who are you to disagree with Sir David, the demigod, Sir David Attenborough? So presumably we should be doing what we're actually tasked to do as marketers, right?
No. So I bow down at the feet of David Attenborough, as should every one of us. Here's what he said. This was his first ever Instagram post. And he entered Instagram, put up a post, became a world record, right? Some 1.7 million views. This is what he said, and this is what we marketeers conveniently took out. He said, we know the world is in trouble. Continents are on fire. Glaciers are melting. Coral reefs are dying. The list goes on. Then he goes on to say, we know the answers. Pause. We know the answers. Now our biggest task is communication. It's not, let's go and communicate to consumer. We know the answers. Let's communicate to our CEOs. Let's communicate to our suppliers. Let's communicate to our partners. Let's convince ourselves we know the answers. So David Attenborough is absolutely right. Continues to be God. It is us who take that as lazy comprehension and goes, oh, Sir David said, now let's make 25,000 more ads while we don't change the company and stuff within the company first. And this is our problem. If we continue to choose the lazy option, the one of the bubble we've made, change will be incremental. Fabrice's daughter and mine and everybody else's knows we shouldn't use plastic.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to tell her how she should dispose the plastic in 6 different color banisters, or are we going to find a solution, starting with the company, on drink water? We'll make it affordable, we'll make it available, we'll make it for everyone, and we will put it somehow, magically, using our creative, that doesn't use single-use plastic. That's the choice. Lazy versus what our future generations require. And if it is latter, it is company changes. Consumers have been ready long before we're changing.
Thank you. So what I took from that was that you just called me lazy on stage. I'm not sure. No, I'm just
on myself.
I'm just joking. Starting with Charlie, perhaps just to make a sort of final word, if you like, based on our discussions, to make a case for disagreeing with the motion in your instance, and followed by Fabrice, and then we'll move to Team Green. So Charlie.
I completely agree with what Rupen's saying, but I don't know how you can do that without focusing on the end behaviour that you want to achieve within society and the end well-being goal of society in mind. I think this goes beyond purchasing as well. It's not just thinking about people's behaviour as consumers. It's about thinking about people's behaviour as citizens. So it's about participation in society, not just purchasing as well. And I think that that latest evidence by the IPCC that suggests that focusing on individuals' needs, behaviours and lifestyles can reduce emissions by up to 70% is where we as an industry need to be focused, particularly as that policy rolls down through governments and into the business ecosystem.
It's pretty powerful when IPCC and COP27, all those industries looking for us to actually do what we're meant to be doing. So thank you. Fabrice.
We're running out of time. We need all the energies that we can count on. We need the resources of the company, their talent, their money. We need the voices of the brand. It's an and it's an end to deploy now.
Thank you. Nice and concise. Ozlem?
Yeah. So I would like to wrap up. We need transformative change. And what we do is brag about our incremental change. And I know we are all stuck, and that's what we try to find more, optimism in. But we need to change from within. And the studies also showed that individual level responsibility is only diverting us from focusing on the systemic solutions. And we have little time left. Every month, we use up to 1% of the carbon budget for 1.5 degrees. That's 1% of the remaining carbon budget for humanity's time on Earth. Therefore, I would like to ask every marketer in this room actually to lean in internally to be able to contribute to company change.
Last but not least.
There are enough women in the room, right? You're consumers when it comes to gender equality. We're all consumers. Me as a dad of girls and all of you. Let's hope, if we choose consumers, that in 130 years, change will happen. We know the answers. You ask Alini Santos today, she will tell you what companies need to do. Bam, 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 bam. So if we want to change that 130 years to 5, 2, now, companies have the answers. Change needs to begin with the company, whether it's the planet, whether it's any of those 17 sustainable development goals. When we will choose consumer, when you choose disagree, my daughters will wait 132 years and all the women in this room will, because we let the company off for free. So that's your choice today for what we put out as a number where we held companies accountable to go first and not just said, oh, consumer will change one day. Please, thank you.
Fantastic. So, thank you all for your attention. And now we come to the point where we ask if we're going to throw up the poll to see if our debaters, our excellent debaters here, have managed to sway your opinions. So, once again, final time today. Marketers should focus on company, not consumer behavior change.
Oh. What's happening?
Agree.
Really?
Agree.
That's us. I think we need to check the statistics.
I can't believe that. Hey, man, high five. Thank you.
I think we might need to review some of the voting numbers there, but so the majority of you now agreeing with the motion that we should move for company, not consumer behaviour change. So it's quite a surprising shift. Again, not sure we're going to be doing this next year.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you very much. Some of your excellent questions that came up, some people saying this isn't a binary choice. Of course it's not. Everyone understands on this stage that we need to be doing both company and consumer behaviour change. But I think it's been a really fascinating exercise in terms of exploring the deltas, if you like, of those arguments. One point I will just finish on is, please, just to remind you that our excellent debaters here have been playing a role that we've requested. They've been very brave coming up today. They've stuck to their arguments. They, of course, agree it's not black and white as well. But please, if you could always just say a final massive thank you to our debaters today. So,
thank you.